Welcome to the KinderPage podcast from Toronto. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, and we're discussing holistic education, unleashing your child's full potential in today's world.
Hi there.
And just a quick note, this podcast is based on research, so listeners should always verify details for themselves.
Good point.
So yeah, we're taking a really good look today at this idea of holistic education, specifically in the Canadian context. It's about going beyond just the report card grades, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's really about nurturing the whole child. We're talking intellectual potential, sure, but also their emotional side, their social skills, physical development, creativity, art, their ethical understanding, even their kind of spiritual awareness.
Right, that inner spark. And it's not some brand new idea, is it?
Not at all. It's
Yeah.
actually got pretty deep roots. I mean, you can go way back to ancient Greece, Socrates saying, know thyself. That's a fundamentally holistic goal,
Right.
understanding your whole self.
Totally. Like he was saying, hey, there's more to learning than just memorizing facts.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here in Canada is how closely this resonates with many Indigenous worldviews. That deep understanding of interconnectedness, everything being related, and that learning comes from experience, from being part of the community, part of the land. It's a powerful connection.
It really is. So for everyone listening, our mission today is to, well, dig into what holistic education might mean for you and your child right here in Canada. We'll unpack the core principles, see how it stacks up against more traditional schooling, and really explore why it's so relevant now.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The core ideas.
Yeah, let's dive into those core principles. What's number one?
Well, the first and maybe the most fundamental is interconnectedness. This is the idea that everything is linked, mind, body, spirit, the individual child and their community, humanity, and the natural world. It's all connected. There's this concept called a holon. It's something that's both a whole thing in itself, but also part of something bigger, like a single cell in your body, or maybe a better example, a leaf on a tree. It's a leaf, but it's also part of the tree.
Ah, I see. Sort of like those Russian nesting dolls, maybe?
Yeah.
But for everything, it's the opposite of putting things in totally separate boxes, like school subjects that never seem to connect.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Traditional education sometimes feels fragmented, doesn't it? Separate subjects and school often feels disconnected from, well, real life. Holistic education actively tries to weave those connections. So you might see integrated lessons or learning that directly relates to a child's life and the world around them. It's about seeing the child as a whole, not just a collection of skills to be tested.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, principle number 2 you mentioned was balance. Now, I try to balance my schedule, but I'm guessing this is different.
Yeah, slightly different. Not about juggling appointments, though that's useful too. This balance is about seeking harmony between different aspects of being human. Things like analytical thinking versus intuitive or imaginative thinking.
Okay.
Holistic education values both. It's about integrating mind and body, different ways of knowing, balancing individual needs with community needs, even finding a place for both competition and collaboration. Quantitative and qualitative ways of understanding things.
Right. It's like acknowledging we're not just, brains on sticks. There's this whole inner world, feelings, physical stuff that's just as important. It feels like a bit of a pushback against the idea that school's only job is prepping kids for the economy.
You've hit on a key point. There is a criticism that mainstream education can sometimes overemphasize cognitive skills. Maybe those seen as directly linked to productivity, potentially neglecting a child's inner life and overall well-being. Holistic approaches try to consciously redress that balance.
Okay. And the third principle was inclusion. What does that mean in this context, more than just everyone being in the same room, I assume?
Oh, absolutely. Inclusion here really means deeply valuing the wholeness and the unique potential of every child. Respecting that kids learn differently, have different temperaments, different backgrounds. It's a move away from narrow labels, like, say, learning disabled, towards identifying and nurturing individual strengths.
So instead of just focusing on what a child can't do, it's about finding out what they can do, what they excel at, and supporting their whole development.
Precisely. And it also means understanding that a child exists within larger systems, their family, community, culture, the environment. Their learning is tied into all of that.
Got it. And the last core principle, transformation. Sounds dramatic.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
But it's about learning being more than just absorbing information. It's about personal growth, societal growth even, leading to deeper self-understanding and a sense of responsibility.
So learning actually changes you, makes you a more thoughtful person, not just someone who knows more stuff.
Exactly. Think about the root of the word educate. It comes from the Latin educere, which means to lead out. or to bring forth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So holistic educators often see their role as helping to bring out the potential that's already inside the child, not just pouring knowledge in.
Okay, those principles make a lot of sense. Interconnectedness, balance, inclusion, transformation. So now let's get practical. How does this actually look different from, say, the traditional school most of us remember? For a Canadian parent weighing options, what are the key differences?
Right, let's compare. The first big difference is the core focus. Traditional education often puts a heavy emphasis on, well, measurable academic results, grades, test scores, mastering distinct subjects like math or history.
The usual suspects.
Exactly. Now, holistic education definitely cares about learning, don't get me wrong, but it places just as much importance on the learning process itself and the development of the whole child, intellectual, emotional, social, physical, spiritual. It's about sparking curiosity, self-discovery, and overall well-being alongside academics.
So it's not just about the final answer, but how you got there and who you're becoming.
Spot on. And that difference in focus naturally changes the classroom environment. Think back, traditional classrooms often mean desks and rows, teacher at the front, lots of quiet listening.
Oh, yeah. I remember that feeling drop a pencil and it felt like a major event.
Right. Holistic environments tend to be more dynamic, more flexible. The space might be set up for different activities, group tables, maybe floor cushions, maybe even using the outdoors regularly. It's much more about active participation, learner-centered, subject-centered.
Sounds way more engaging, especially for kids who aren't built for sitting still all day. So what about the actual teaching methods, textbooks and lectures?
Less emphasis on those, typically. Traditional methods often lean on lectures, textbooks, rote memorization, drilling facts, and, lots of test prep.
Yep, sounds familiar.
Holistic approaches use a wider toolkit. Think experiential learning, learning by doing, play-based learning, especially in the early years, opportunities for self-guided exploration based on the child's interests, project-based learning, tackling real-world problems, and lots of interdisciplinary work, connecting different subjects.
That sounds more like, well, life,
Yeah,
where you actually use different skills together. And the teacher's role, still the expert at the front.
Less sage on the stage, more guide on the side is how it's often put. In a traditional model, the teacher is the expert delivering knowledge and assessing performance.
Right.
In holistic education, the teacher acts more as a facilitator, a guide, a mentor, even a co-learner. Building strong teacher-student relationships is really fundamental.
I like that. Okay, the big one for parents, assessment. How do you know kids are learning if it's not all about standardized tests?
That's a crucial question and a key difference. Traditional assessment often relies heavily on those tests, quizzes, grades, snapshots, focusing on the final outcome.
The score.
Holistic assessment aims to be more comprehensive, more integrated into the learning itself. You see more formative feedback meant to help learning happen during the process. Things like teacher observations, student portfolios showing work over time, projects, self-reflection by the student, input from the child and family.
So a much fuller picture.
Exactly. It's focused on growth across all those dimensions we talked about, not just ranking kids against each other. The emphasis shifts from the grade to understanding the child's progress and journey.
It paints a richer picture, definitely.
It does. And this is where, you sometimes see a bit of tension within Canadian public education systems. The holistic focus on individuality, process, and broader goals can sometimes bump up against the need for standardization, often required large systems for accountability and things like that.
Right, that makes sense. It suggests integrating holistic ideas more broadly might need some real shifts in how we usually do things. Okay, let's move on to nurturing potential through those 5 dimensions you mentioned earlier. You said they're all linked up, yeah.
Definitely interconnected. Growth in one really supports the others. So the first dimension is fostering intellectual curiosity and critical thinking.
Okay.
This isn't about ditching the basics, but going beyond just memorizing. It's about sparking genuine understanding, critical thinking skills, creativity, problem solving, and that innate curiosity.
So less about just knowing what, more about knowing how and why.
Exactly. You might see inquiry-based learning, where kids ask their own questions and investigate, projects tackling real-world issues, and making connections between subjects. Like that river example, studying a river could involve science, geography, history, art, language arts, all woven together.
I love that example. It makes learning feel alive. What's dimension number 2?
Cultivating emotional intelligence and well-being. This is huge. Helping kids recognize, understand, express, and manage their emotions in healthy ways.
Super important.
Yeah. And building resilience, empathy, a positive self-image. Safe, supportive classrooms are key. You might see mindfulness practices, discussions about feelings, using stories to explore emotions, activities focused on empathy and self-regulation. Especially with growing concerns about youth mental health in Canada, this focus is critical.
Absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Third dimension.
Building social skills and community connections, learning how to interact respectfully, build healthy relationships, communicate clearly, cooperate, resolve conflicts, understand different perspectives. It reinforces that interconnectedness idea, relationships with peers, teachers, family, community, nature.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see collaborative learning group projects, peer teaching, cooperative games, maybe community involvement like service learning to help kids see their role in the wider world.
Sounds like building good people, not just good students. Number 4.
Developing physical health and mind-body awareness. So yes, physical fitness, motor skills, coordination, healthy habits like nutrition and sleep, but also, crucially, that awareness of the mind-body connection.
How so?
Through movement, active play, outdoor exploration. But also things like mindfulness, yoga, dance, drama activities that help kids connect physical sensations with their thoughts and emotions. It's seen as vital for emotional regulation and even cognitive function.
Interesting. And the 5th dimension.
Encouraging artistic expression and spiritual growth. The arts, visual arts, music, drama, dance, storytelling are seen as vital ways of learning and expressing understanding. The focus is often more on the creative process, the exploration, not just the final product.
So it's okay if the painting is a bit interpretive.
Totally. And the spiritual dimension is usually viewed broadly. It's about nurturing the inner life, meaning purpose, connection. This could involve exploring values like compassion and respect, fostering wonder through nature or stories, self-reflection. In a diverse society like Canada's, this broad, inclusive understanding is key.
Wow, okay. So these 5 dimensions really work together to nurture the whole child. Now, the big question for listeners: why does this holistic approach actually matter? What's the real advantage for their child?
Well, the impact is pretty significant, starting with overall well-being. By focusing on emotional and social learning, kids develop better self-awareness, confidence, emotional regulation, resilience, skills directly relevant to tackling those youth mental health concerns we see in Canada.
Right.
And, maybe counterintuitively for some, it often leads to improved academic achievement. When education caters to different learning styles, sparks intrinsic motivation, reduces stress, and happens in a supportive environment, kids tend to engage more deeply and learn better.
So feeling good actually helps you learn better. Who knew?
Exactly. And there's even discussion about how an over-reliance on standardized testing can sometimes backfire, leading to disengagement, especially for some students.
Okay, so better well-being, potentially better academics.
Yeah.
What about skills for life beyond school?
This is where a holistic education really shines. It fosters essential life skills: communication, collaboration, empathy, responsibility, adaptability, problem-solving, critical thinking, learning how to learn, perseverance.
The stuff you actually use.
Precisely. Skills needed for relationships, careers, citizenship. When you encourage creativity through arts and project-based work, you're building problem solvers. When you encourage questions and exploration, you build critical thinkers. That focus on interconnectedness helps them understand complex systems. And building self-awareness and emotional regulation fosters adaptability and resilience.
And you also mentioned resilience, empathy, and responsible citizenship specifically.
Yes. Those safe, supportive environments help build resilience naturally. Explicitly teaching emotional literacy provides coping tools. Empathy is cultivated through collaboration, exploring diverse perspectives in literature or real-world issues, and building respectful relationships. It's about understanding and appreciating diversity. And ultimately, these skills, resilience, empathy, critical thinking, are the bedrock of social responsibility, ethical decision-making, and active citizenship. They line up perfectly with what people often call 21st century skills.
It really sounds like it's about preparing kids not just for tests, but for, well, for life, for complexity, for being well-rounded humans. That's the goal. It presents a really powerful framework for nurturing individuals who are ready for the challenges and opportunities of today and tomorrow right here in Canada.
So for everyone who joined us for this deep dive into holistic education, we've looked at its core principles: interconnectedness, balance, inclusion, transformation. We've seen how it differs from more traditional approaches in the classroom, in teaching, in assessment. And we've explored the huge benefits across those 5 dimensions: intellectual, emotional, social, physical, and artistic or spiritual growth.
It really covers a lot of ground.
It does. Hopefully, this has given you some valuable insights into how this approach might help unlock your child's full potential. Maybe think about what resonated most with you from our chat today. What questions do you still have about weaving these ideas into your child's learning, whether that's at home, in childcare, or when you're looking at schools? This is definitely just the start of a really interesting exploration.